Well, my friends, a Texas woman has been charged with murder for what authorities are calling a self-induced abortion. This is sadly completely predictable based on what Texas has been doing as far as abortion law for years now and really for decades now in terms of what they've been trying to do. And one of the lines that's repeated so often that it's like cliche, we've all heard it so many times, it's a cliche at this point, is banning abortion doesn't reduce abortions. It just reduces legal abortions in your particular state. What does that mean? Well, it means if you make abortion more difficult to obtain, or you make it illegal, or you make it illegal in more situations, people will either go to a neighboring state if they can afford it and if it's legal in a neighboring state, or they will pay for an illegal abortion. This is very common in other countries. I mean, if you look at where I was born, Argentina, there were long periods of time where it was illegal, but if you had money, you just went to a private doctor and it was fine, and you had the money to do it. That's the second option. Third option, what we sometimes call a back alley abortion, a home abortion. In this case, it's being called a self-induced abortion. And that is exactly what happened here with 26-year-old Lizelle Herrera, who was arrested late last week and has been charged with murder. Herrera was given a $500,000 bond. $500,000 we are talking about here. Now, remember that this idea of, I don't know, do we punish the women? This is something Republicans have been toying with for a long time. They've tended to go against it. But remember that when Donald Trump ran, Trump was pro-choice. Trump was pro-choice for 68 years. Then he ran for president as a Republican, and he had to have some kind of credible escape hatch to explain, suddenly I'm against abortion. He's speaking at the March for Life. The story Trump told us, completely unbelievable story, was that despite being in favor of choice for 68 years, he met a kid whose mom said, I thought about getting an abortion. And Trump was like, I like that kid. It would have been sad if that kid didn't exist. So now I'm the strongest pro-life candidate. I mean, nobody believed it. And a result of Trump not actually being pro-life was that he stepped into some controversial territory, like when he said, well, you've got to punish the woman. Remember this?
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years,
I don't
what?
know. That I don't.
Right. So the next day, Trump walked it back. But the punishment for back alley or home abortions, that they seem fine with. And we have other instances of similar situations. You might remember back in October, just a few months ago, 7 months ago, 7 months ago, we covered the story, I think, on the bonus show of a Native American woman in Oklahoma who was convicted of manslaughter over a miscarriage. This was Brittany Poolaw, 21 years old, convicted on second-degree manslaughter by a Comanche County jury for the death of her fetus with a gestational age of 15 to 17 weeks. So don't be confused about the big picture of how Texas has dealt with abortion. The number of abortion clinics in Texas has declined dramatically. You go back to the mid-1980s, and we're putting a chart up on the screen for our viewers, over 120 clinics at which abortion services were available. That is now under 20 as of a few years ago. It may be even lower now. I didn't have updated data. So people really may have no idea what we're in for here if Republicans get their way. And this is really about two things. It's really about three things. Number one, this is about, on paper, reducing the number of abortions in Texas. Now, remember, you're not actually reducing the number of abortions. You might reduce the number of legal abortions in Texas because people will either be pushed to other states if they can afford it, or they will be pushed into, so-called private back alley home abortions. That's number one. Number two, this continues to be about controlling women's bodies in a way that lines up with the stated morals of the people doing it. And it's important to include the word stated morals, because as we have found out through the election of Trump with evangelical support, despite his affairs and all these things, we know that they're only their stated morals. It's not their morals. They're their morals that they use to try to get themselves elected. And then number three, it's also a real sign about what might be coming at the Supreme Court level. Within months, the Supreme Court, one of the most right-wing Supreme Courts we've had in decades, is going to make a decision that might change the established precedent of Roe v. Wade, making abortion legal in the country, generally speaking, without placing an undue burden on women. That framework, that precedent, may be reversed in just months by the current Supreme Court. The states are pushing it because this has always been the plan. When they get a more conservative Supreme Court, they all start doing it. Mississippi, Texas, Missouri, many states have been pushing and passing similar bills, knowing that they're going to be fought, they're going to be appealed. Hopefully they go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will issue what could be a life-changing ruling for so many women and families around the country. Is it time to move out of Texas? Well, I don't know. Part of it is a question of what does the Supreme Court decide? And we're going to know that soon. But this is exactly what we predicted they would do. They are doing it. And you can look at any one of these cases and say, well, but in this particular case or in that particular, this was the plan all along. We knew that they were going to do it, and they're going to continue. This is kind of funny. Fox News and other right-wing media have gone silent on ivermectin, one of the popular promoted, quote, treatments for COVID that many on the right-wing media have promoted instead of vaccination, have promoted as a reason why we don't really need to take precautions. Very early, before there was any evidence, they said ivermectin works. And now that we have multiple studies that shows ivermectin doesn't work for COVID, some people miss that. They go, David, it works fine for horse deworming or for parasitic infections. Does it work for COVID? No. Fox News hasn't issued an apology. As far as I know, Rogan and others haven't issued apologies. They just aren't talking about ivermectin anymore. So let's go back a little bit. Early in the pandemic, I was right there in the forefront. I think it was March of 2020, if not April of 2020. And I came to you and I said, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that is being looked at and it should be looked at. There's this thing called hydroxychloroquine. Should be looked at. It's being tested. There is azithromycin. Does it have a possible antiviral effect? It's going to be studied. We should study it. A combination of, I believe it was HIV drugs that were being looked at. What about taking the Z-Pak with zinc or with vitamin D? And I said to you, there's 8 to 12 different things. We don't know if they work for COVID. They should be studied. They are being studied. And different right-wing media fixated on 1 or 2 of them and said, this just works. We have a treatment. This works. Open everything. Early, they fixated on hydroxychloroquine. Eventually, it became a focus on ivermectin. Today, we know ivermectin doesn't work for COVID. Right-wing media touted it for months and months and months. They were convinced that it works, convinced that there was a cover-up because it's cheap, and they don't want you to know. They used ivermectin promotion to cast doubt on the vaccine while pushing something unproven. You even had people saying the vaccine is deadly. Alex Berenson said it. Tucker Carlson said on his show. It seems that thousands, tens of thousands of people may have died from the vaccine. I mean, really crazy, dangerous stuff, while promoting ivermectin and claiming they don't want you to know about it and they don't want you to have it. We now know it doesn't work, okay? And yet, Fox hosts pushed anecdote after anecdote after anecdote. And in fact, Mediaite has a great sample of them. In January of last year, Laura Ingraham said a friend of hers took ivermectin after getting COVID and she got better. Now, what's the problem with that? It's the same problem that exists with a lot of homeopathic treatments, which is a lot of things get better without doing anything. For example, headaches. Wow, I had a terrible headache, and then I ate a papaya with peanut butter, and the next day I felt better. Well, yeah, most people's headaches get better. And it's the same thing with COVID. Most people get better from COVID. I could say, I had COVID, And I decided to burn a bunch of tennis balls, sprinkle cinnamon on it, and breathe the fumes. And within 5 days, I was better of COVID. This is not how we study stuff, particularly when you expect a regression to the mean. You expect that most people are going to get better. Okay, in September, Brian Kilmeade suggested ivermectin could treat COVID, saying sometimes drugs work for different things. Yeah, off-label uses are a thing. There was just no evidence ivermectin worked for COVID. In December, Ben Carson said ivermectin is effective against COVID. There was no such evidence. 2 weeks later, Tucker Carlson interviewed a psychiatrist who said ivermectin could be a lifesaver. Now, my dad's a psychiatrist. He would not go around telling you what works to treat COVID because that's not his area of expertise. There were 300 or so such instances. But now we have the data from actual studies. We have a study called Efficacy of Ivermectin Treatment on Disease Progression Among Adults with Mild to Moderate COVID-19 and Comorbidities. And COVID doesn't work. Ivermectin doesn't work for COVID. I wish COVID didn't work. Ivermectin doesn't work for COVID. And now Fox News and other right-wing media are silent. It's just not a topic anymore. Like, they've talked about it 300 times. And I don't have any clips to show you because there are no clips. They're not talking about it anymore. It's like they always do it. They just go silent. This actually happened with hydroxychloroquine. Just think back. We did a clip in April of 2020 called Trump and Fox Go Silent on Hydroxychloroquine because studies came out after a month of talking about hydroxy saying it doesn't work for COVID. So then they just never talked about it again. Another example, February, Fox goes silent moment after massive jobs report. They promoted and predicted a bad jobs report for days up until the jobs report came out. The jobs report was good. Joe Biden's president. We don't talk about it anymore. The media literacy takeaway here. So there's like a COVID takeaway, which is the ivermectin doesn't work. We now know that. Great. There's a media literacy takeaway as well, which is the power of what you don't talk about. This is the power of story selection and power of the exclusion of stories. I'm not immune to this. Like, I'll give you an example. People email me. They say, David, why aren't you talking about Hunter Biden's laptop? That's right. I don't think it's a legitimate story to cover. And when I talk about it to tell you, look at how crazy the right is going about this. But I'm not covering Hunter Biden's laptop story as a story. I did it once. I explained to you all about the blind computer tech who thinks it might be Hunter Biden's laptop. I covered it once. I told you what's being said. But I do this too. I ignore some stories because I don't think that they are stories. Everybody does this. You just have to understand whether it's being done in good faith or in bad faith. And every time Fox News gets debunked about whatever, a jobs report, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, you never hear about it again. Let me know your thoughts. Find me on Twitter at @DPacman. And next Tuesday, April 19th, we'll be doing the next David Pakman Show viewer town hall. It will be at 6 Eastern, and it will be streaming on the Pakman Live YouTube channel. I want to hear from as many of you as possible. That'll be Tuesday, April 19th, 6 p.m. on the Pakman Live YouTube channel. Quick break, right back. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. The David Pakman Show is, of course, a viewer, community, listener-supported program. We depend on your support to do what we do 5 days a week now for many, many years. They tell me it's a big number, the folks do. You can sign up and support us by getting a membership at joinpakman.com. You can also now gift memberships to others. We have about 650 people who have requested a free membership. We will fulfill those requests in the order that people gift memberships. There's a box that says this is a gift when you check out at joinpakman.com, and we will give out those free memberships in the order that they come in. You can, of course, always use the coupon code WOW22 to discount your membership dramatically. So much so that people are telling me that's too big a discount, sir. And I insist. I say, no, the people deserve it. The people deserve it. Joinpacman.com is the place to sign up. Hey, this is really, really interesting because there's a viral video floating around now of Senator Brian Schatz just eviscerating Republican Senator Josh Hawley over his attempts to delay Joe Biden's Defense Department nominees. And the video is great because of the substance and because of the content. But the video is also great because it's a reminder of the strategy that Democrats should be taking when it comes to fighting Republicans. And, remember when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And I've said many times before, we should not go down to their level of lying and these corrosive attacks on democracy in order to win. Like we shouldn't do that. But when it comes to rhetoric and style and tone and strategy, we absolutely need to be doing some of the things that the right does, because otherwise we're just going to keep losing. So let's get to this video clip. In this video clip, you are going to hear Senator Schatz really just crush Josh Hawley, who was, by the way, one of the main pro-insurrection senators. Let's listen, and then we'll discuss.
He could have brought his floor charts out here and given a withering speech about all of the things that he thought went wrong. But he's doing a very specific thing. He is damaging the Department of Defense. We have senior DOD leaders.
Right.
We have the Armed Services Committee coming to us and saying, I don't know what to tell him. I don't know how to satisfy him, but he is blocking the staffing of the senior leadership at the Department of Defense. And this comes from a guy who raised his fist in solidarity with the insurrectionists.
True.
And this comes from a guy who, before the Russian invasion, suggested that maybe it would be wise for Zelensky to make a few concessions about Ukraine and their willingness to join NATO.
Oh, boy.
This comes from a guy who just about a month ago voted against Ukraine aid. He's saying it's going too slow. He voted no. He voted no on Ukraine aid, and now he has the gall to say it's going too slow. And this final insult is that until, Secretary Austin resigns? That's not a serious request. People used to come to me during the Trump administration all the time. Do you think Trump should resign? Do you think Tillerson should resign? That's a stupid, of course, I think all the people I disagree with should quit their jobs and be replaced with people I love. Of course, I think they should all resign. That's not how this world works. That is not a reasonable request from a United States senator, that until the Secretary of Defense quits his job, I'm going to block all of his nominees. That's preposterous. And coming from a person who exonerated Donald Trump for extorting Zelensky for withholding lethal aid. They withheld lethal aid unless Zelensky would release false smears against Joe Biden's son. And then he voted to exonerate President Trump for this. And so spare me the new solidarity with the Ukrainians and with the free world, because this man's record is exactly the opposite.
Who could say that a single word of that is wrong? And of course, Brian Schatz is right. And you know the stories. You know the Ukraine story. You know the Josh Hawley insurrection story. So this is less about the facts. That rant, which is not, listen, it's a soundbite, but it's a 2-minute and 20-second soundbite. It's a, for our modern expectations that these things need to be 20 seconds long to go viral. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, and it's more substantive, and it's still got over 3 million views. It might even be up to 4 at this point. So there is an appetite for this type of attitude from the Democratic Party. And this is the attitude that the Democratic Party needs to take. Hone the anger and keep calling out the worst of the worst for their BS individually. Don't speak generally. Speak individually. Josh Hawley does a bad act, another humiliating part. I'm not going to vote to approve anybody, confirm anybody to DOD until Trump's Secretary of Defense resigns. Biden's Secretary of Defense resigns. Give me a break. That's absurd. You're a senator. You're one of 100. You understand how government works. And it's absurd that so many pretend that their supposed concerns are genuine. It's just nonsense politically. It's political nonsense. And so Democrats need to be making the statements, and I'm going to use the term performing, and I don't use that pejoratively. Democrats are often right on substance, but they're not performing in the right way, and it doesn't get any attention. There is enough fodder from Republicans, from what they are doing, from their hypocrisies and double standards and absurdities, for one of these viral eviscerations of a Republican basically every day. Now, you do it every day, it won't get as much attention, but certainly every week. And part of the issue is that Democrats don't really have a media outlet that approaches the power of Fox News. I mean, you've got a 24/7 propaganda agenda-setting institution in Fox News. And even if only a few million people watch Fox News at any one point in time, their agenda-setting power is significant. And then you start seeing the same talking points everywhere else. This is sort of what Rush Limbaugh created, where it was the agenda-setting power. And so Democrats end up trying to catch up and on defense. And a lot of people I know are going to say, but David, what about MSNBC? MSNBC is a center-left corporate media network, and it is not the other side of the coin of Fox News. It's just not. It's not even close. It's not what it is. And it needs to be said and repeated endlessly. Unless the left starts doing more stuff like this, and this is just one thing, you might say, but David, this won't change anyone's vote. This might change a few votes, but it's not going to be enough to defeat Josh Hawley. I don't even think he's up for election. Maybe he is. I don't know if he's up this time around. Doesn't matter. But the point is, this is the attitude that needs to be present everywhere as a minimum. It won't even guarantee victory, but it's got to change. It's got to change because Democrats are just not doing it in the right way. Donald Trump did a rally over the weekend in Selma, North Carolina. He was swollen. He was sweaty. He was slurring out of the gate. He looked particularly disheveled, and he looked very confused by the teleprompter, which, of course, Obama was bad for using a teleprompter, but Trump uses one all the time. The crowd was strange, and Trump seemed to be kind of in a hurry. He was rushing through some of his teleprompter moments, didn't seem too thrilled to be there. He told incredibly corrosive lies. And I'm not going to play even a lot of moments for you. We're going to keep this short. I think it's important to keep a line on how the tone of these changes, but I'm not going to give you 15 clips. We'll just look at a few right here. Trump glitching all over the place. At one point, he said that they have something on ping. I don't know what that is. Maybe you know what it is. Listen to this.
But look at this Dinesh D'Souza movie, and they have it on tape, and they have it on ping. They have it all over the place.
Anybody know what ping is? Does he mean Bing, the search engine that like nobody uses? Is it on Bing? Ping. I don't even know what that means. And the entire speech was confused like this. It wasn't clear whether Trump was misreading things off the prompter that he shouldn't be using because it's bad when Obama used a prompter. It's bad when Hillary used a prompter. It's not clear whether it was written incorrectly on the prompter. It's not clear if ping means something that you and I just don't know. It's all very, very strange. Another moment where Trump seemed visibly confused by the things he was reading off the prompter, he said that one of the January 6th trials, this is almost comedic genius, it ended in an extortion. And if you keep listening, it seems that what Trump means is that it ended in an exoneration. I don't know why he called it an extortion, but there's almost like a Freudian second layer meaning to it. Listen to this.
And as you probably have heard, one of the first January 6 trials ended in an extortion, and it was a horrible thing what they were doing to people, but...
It was a horrible thing what they were doing to people. But, and then I think here he realizes he's not making any sense.
There was exoneration because they effectively proved that he got waved into the Capitol by the police. Oh. Remember this, Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the Capitol. You know that, right? And the mayor of D.C., they were in charge of all security in the Capitol.
Now remember that Trump was asked, send in the National Guard to D.C. This is a semantic game that they're talking about, which is, well, the Speaker of the House generally oversees security in the Capitol. But of course, the problems started outside the Capitol. They started outside the Capitol when crowd control barriers were breached, and Trump was asked, call in, please call in the National Guard, and he didn't do it. So again, confused. Did Trump mean to say that it ended in an extortion instead of an exoneration? We don't know. We just never know. None of it makes any sense. This was very interesting. Trump announced that he is endorsing Mehmet Oz for senator from Pennsylvania. Now, we're going to go back to this endorsement later because MAGA world is in meltdown mode because of this. It's very interesting. But check out the credentials that Trump touts for Mehmet Oz here. Listen to this. See if you can pick up on it.
By the way, I endorsed another person today, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz. Great guy, good man, Harvard educated, tremendous career. And they liked him for a long time. That's like a poll. You know, when you're in television for 18 years, that's like a poll. That means people like you, but he's a...
Did you notice what he did there? He cites Harvard. He goes, this is a Harvard educated doctor as part of the reason why he's so qualified. But understand the hypocrisy. Harvard is woke, leftist indoctrination trash, discriminating against Asian students and blah, 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 blah. Except when they want to puff up Dr. Oz or Ted Cruz, or did DeSantis go to Harvard? Now I don't remember. In that case, when their people went to Harvard, they go, Harvard, it's fantastic. It's the best. It's such a implicit endorsement of these people. They went to Harvard. Except then it's, oh, Harvard's trash. Harvard's gone woke. Harvard is just liberal indoctrination. Which is it, guys? Oh, right. It's whichever one is convenient to you at the time. At another very strange moment, Donald Trump said that he's the cleanest and most honest human being ever created by God. This is slightly hyperbolic. Yeah, it's a bit of a delusion of grandeur.
I've got to be the cleanest sheriff. I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created. Perhaps. Oh. Instead of...
Yeah. Very, very delusional. And then lastly, Donald Trump has been very careful not to actually say, I'm running in 2024, because he wants to sidestep campaign finance laws. I also am starting to think Trump may be laying the groundwork for the health excuse for 2024. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I don't want to get into that today. But here is Trump basically getting as close as he possibly can to saying he's running without actually saying it.
2024, most importantly, we are going to take back our beautiful White House.
Yeah.
2024.
It's starting to play again there. So there are campaign finance reasons for why he might be doing that. But also, I am going to tell you tomorrow about this new health thing that Trump is introducing. I've never heard him do it before, but he did it in an interview with the Washington Post late last week. We'll talk about that tomorrow. If you listened today and didn't see the clips I played and you're curious how bad are the optics, and they're very, very bad, you'll be able to find all of these clips on our Instagram at David Pakman Show. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. So sometimes I'll say kind of metaphorically that Trump rallies and Trump events are sort of like these circus tent evangelical churches, but we don't literally mean that. But Trump's rally in Selma, North Carolina over the weekend actually really seemed like one. Madison Cawthorn, the radical Republican Trumpist congressman who is in a wheelchair, he's paralyzed, I guess it's from the waist down from a car accident. He did a sort of reenactment of the type of scene you would normally see like in an evangelical faith healing church, where he performed a miracle and stood up using his arms, holding himself up on a walker type thing with the help of two people and metal braces on his legs, I believe. And it's horrible on so many levels. And I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to play the clip for you. If you're only listening, it's important that I describe that what's going on is he is performing a miracle by standing despite being paralyzed from the waist down. Just look at this.
$7 a gallon. My friends, this country can change very quickly. And it may seem impossible. People tell me that it's impossible to change the direction of our country, that it's impossible to root out the corruption in our government.
Here he goes. So they bring out a walker, and then two people kind of stand him up. This is a miracle that he's performing. And there he is.
But my friends, God spared my life. He has given me the strength to stand before you today, so do not lecture me on what is impossible. My fellow patriots, Americans are in the business of doing the impossible, because with God, all things are possible.
Yeah. So listen, first of all, of course, no disrespect to his physical condition whatsoever. I wish he had never gotten into that car accident. I wish he had full use of his legs. Of course, I would never ridicule anyone for, I mean, he has a terrible medical condition. It's horrible, okay? But what are the issues here? First of all, it's not like he stood up and walked around. And so even this framing of, with God, anything is possible, well, why didn't God keep you out of the accident? Why didn't God give you the ability to walk rather than just standing in this way? Right? I mean, it's no disrespect to him. It's great that he can stand on the strength of his arms. That's a beautiful thing. That's better than not being able to do it. But why is it, if you're invoking that God did these things, why wouldn't God have spared you from the accident or from the paralysis? It just doesn't make any sense. These are indefeasible comments, first of all. Secondly, FDR used to do this, okay? FDR did this without fanfare. He didn't say it's God's work. FDR didn't weaponize his physical problem to try to sucker people into supporting anything in particular. FDR had actual policy ideas, and that's part of it. It's sad that it works with this crowd, and it's also not super surprising that there's this palpable lack of authentic spirituality that pervades the Republican Party. It's performative charlatanism. And that's what we saw here from Madison Cawthorn. You don't see this and go, that is some authentic spirituality. You go, that's like the type of act you would expect at a faith-healing church. And it is classic cult stuff. I may do a deeper dive into this later this week or next week. There is a book called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, a study of brainwashing in China. It's written by Robert J. Lifton. This is a fantastic book, and it talks about the different elements for brainwashing people, what is sometimes called thought reform. And one of the items on the list is what's called mystical manipulation. The manipulation of experiences that appears spontaneous, but it's actually planned and orchestrated by the group or its leaders to demonstrate divine authority, spiritual advancement, exceptional talent, or insight that sets the leader apart from humanity and allows a reinterpretation of historical events, scripture, and other experiences. That is exactly what Madison Cawthorn is doing here. He's doing this mystical manipulation where he's able to rise up and stand despite being paralyzed. Cawthorn also does number three. Number three is a demand for purity. The world is viewed as black and white. Everybody is exhorted to conform to the ideology of the group and to strive for perfection, and they use guilt and shame to control people. His recent stuff with the orgies and the cocaine, he presents himself as he's pure. He's been told that the orgies and the cocaine go on. He doesn't participate in it. He's the pure one. Sacred science is another item from the list of criteria for thought reform. The group's doctrine or ideology is considered to be the ultimate truth beyond questioning and dispute. Truth is not found outside the group. The leader, as the spokesperson for God or humanity, is likewise above criticism. This is more general to Trumpism. Trump literally has said, don't believe what you're seeing, don't believe what you're hearing. I will tell you what's really going on. I will give you the truth. And then lastly from this list, loading the language. The group interprets or uses words and phrases in new ways so that often the outside world doesn't understand. This includes thought-terminating cliches, which serve to alter members' thought process to conform the group's way of thinking. They do that all the time. For example, fake news. That's a thought-terminating cliche. It's not really fake news. It's just news you disagree with. It's reporting that's not good for you. That's fake news. That's it. Or, hey, you know what? That was incredibly insensitive and discriminatory. You're woke. That's another thought-terminating cliche. This is incredible how closely their behavior conforms to these brainwashing techniques, and we will talk about that more. Speaking of brainwashing, I am going to show you the best moment I have ever seen during interviews with Trump supporters and Trump rally attendees. There is a video of a little kid brought to this weekend's Trump rally in Selma, North Carolina. And the reporter asked the kid, "What are you excited for?" And the kid goes, "I'm excited to see Joe Biden." Oh, and the mom goes, "Trump, Trump." Now, I have a few thoughts about what might be going on here. Listen closely to what the mom says. This is the best clip from a Trump rally I have ever seen.
How excited were you when you found out there was going to be a rally here?
I mean, just as excited as he was. He's the one that told me about it, so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, first rally, too?
Yes, sir.
I think they're more excited than we are. Are you excited? Yeah.
What are you excited for?
I'm the secret body.
Trump.
Oh, that is genius. So, okay. So did you guys notice how the mom kept saying, it's the kids who told us about the rally. It's the kids who are really the excited ones. It's almost like they're trying to say, it's like when you go to Disney World and you're like, look, they wanted to come. I don't want to be here, but they wanted to come. But maybe the kids have no idea what's going on. I mean, the kid seems to think he's at a Joe Biden rally. So this could be one of these things where they're pushing their desire to be there onto the kids, and the kids have no interest, and they're just being dragged in. Whatever it is one of the most genius clips I have ever seen from a Trump event. Here's another one. This one seems like a parody. Two brothers say a lot of really wacky stuff.
Seems like every meeting I see is undisgraceful.
Did you guys hear that? It's not disgraceful. It's undisgraceful. Whoa, that's pretty strong.
And it's ungodly.
And we support you guys 100%.
100%.
And we just want to tell the fake news, CNN, MSNBC, all of y'all are disgraceful to this country, and we're gonna come after you.
You're demonic. You're devils. We get saved.
Right.
Are you guys brothers?
We are, man.
Yeah. So if I told you guys that's a joke, those are comedians and they troll Trump rallies, that was satire, who would say, no, David, that doesn't make sense? You would say that makes perfect sense. That makes more sense than that these guys really exist as such. Here's another guy at the Trump rally saying that January 6th was Antifa.
Are we supposed to believe that they didn't set up the protesters on January 6th?
Right. That's exactly right. There's video out there that they're trying to suppress. It's all on people's TikToks and stuff.
Yep.
Where they had Antifa members inside the White House on that day saying, we need more people. We need more people.
Now, why would there be Antifa at the White House when Trump was president? Does that make any sense?
Trying to break through why they were trying to break
okay. No. So now the other guy corrects him and goes, do you mean the Capitol? Wow.
through the floor in one of the offices. A lady was in the window with a megaphone telling people what to do and where to go.
Yeah, there's so many holes in the official narrative about January 6th.
Right. It's just none of it really makes sense. And of course, like, why would Antifa try to keep Trump in office and prevent Biden from being sworn in? They never have an answer to that. And lastly, here's a couple guys who have spent 30 grand going to Trump rallies.
It costs you guys to drive across the country. I'm just curious, like, how much of your own money, obviously your own money, that you've invested to do this?
So this is my 45th Trump rally. I probably invested $30,000 of my own money coming here. But
by the way, invested. Not exactly financial literacy. You're really burning the money. You're not investing it. I would look at index funds and maybe a little bit of money in a high yield savings account if you're actually looking for investments. I don't know that going to Trump rallies really counts as an investment.
I can tell you in the last year, it's it's been worse. It's been worse. The flights are double. The rent-a-cars are double. Gas is almost $4 a gallon all along the East Coast. It's getting ridiculous. You know, we want it back to $2 gas. We want it back to $100 flights, and we want it back to cheap rental cars.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen because things do get more expensive over time, but any one of these could be a joke. Any one of these could be a skit on Saturday Night Live, without a doubt. And it would be more funny if this wasn't a political movement with teeth that might get people as crazy as Herschel Walker elected. So that we've now looked at the wacky from the weekend, but I am going to have to read everybody the riot act. I apologize in the next segment because as wacky as some of the supporters are and as wacky as some of the candidates are, some of them are leading in polls, and it is a dystopian nightmare. That's coming up after the break. Make sure you're following us on Facebook at facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. So we're getting our first sort of serious signal that this could be a really ugly midterm election for Democrats. And it comes from none other than the Georgia Senate race, where former NFL football player Herschel Walker, who we've covered quite a bit, I mean, he's one of the least qualified people running for Senate right now, is leading the incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock. We're going to look at polling, and it would be funny if it weren't so sad and scary. So, new Emerson College poll. Georgia, Walker versus Warnock. Walker leading 49-45 with 6% undecided. Now, of course, there's a 3% margin of error either way and 6% undecided. So this could go either way. But these are not good numbers. And this is not the only poll that has it this way. If we look at the Real Clear Politics page, where you could see a number of the recent polls, you see that Walker is leading by an average of 1.6. He's +4 in the Emerson poll I just mentioned. Walker is +1 in the recent Quinnipiac poll. Walker is +3 in the AJC poll. And then back in August of last year, in the Democratic-leaning poll, Raphael Warnock was ahead. So we don't have that much polling, but none of it looks particularly good for Raphael Warnock. And this should genuinely scare us. This is one of the most uninformed people that is running for prominent office. Raphael Warnock, for whatever you may like or dislike about him, particularly as the incumbent, to see him doing this poorly is very bad. Remember that we've talked about recently, Herschel Walker, not Raphael Warnock, said, if evolution is real, why are there still apes? Remember this brilliant analysis?
Here, that means somebody up there had to say, let there be light, that the earth started, and then he had to put someone there on earth. Because remember, Adam was there. Remember, Adam came there, then Eve came. So somebody had to start it out. So that means it had to be a God. Because it didn't just some bomb blew up and it started out. And then I'll tell you something else I heard. Now think about this. Because at one time, science said man came from apes.
Right.
Did it not?
That's when you go to the science. Every time I read or hear that, I think to myself, you just didn't read the same Bible I did.
Well, this was interesting, though. If that is true, why are there still apes? Think about it.
You know, now you're getting too smart for us.
No. Think about this. We have an evolution we've gotten so intelligent that if that is true, why are there still apes?
Right. Now, of course, we've talked about this so many times before. Well, modern apes and modern humans have a shared ancestor a really long time ago. And if dogs evolved from wolves, why are there still wolves? And yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but this guy's winning. This guy's winning. And this is what we're up against. And the voters hear that and they go, that's better than Raphael Warnock. That's a real problem. That's a real problem. Here's another one of Herschel Walker at a recent Trump rally. I think this one was about two weeks ago, saying that he's sick of CTR. Whoa, that's crazy. CTR.
For this country. People want to ask me all the time why I'm running. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of them wanting to teach CTR in school, critical race theory. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah. Well, let's start getting the acronym correct, which is, of course, CRT. This is the guy that's winning. This is the guy that might replace Raphael Warnock in the Senate. So it's very difficult. You know, in general, elections aren't isolated. And what I mean by that is, if there's a bunch of incumbents, if there's one incumbent knocked out, there will probably be a bunch of incumbents knocked out. But if I think of a sort of bellwether representation of the midterms, if you see the incumbent Raphael Warnock lose to a guy who can barely string together a coherent thought. And again, if he has a brain injury from playing football, okay, I mean, it's not been announced that he does. Maybe it's possible, but it's dubious whether the guy even kind of has his head on straight. If Raphael Warnock loses to this guy, it is really going to be a bad sign for what the midterms have in store. And it's probably a bad sign for 2024. It's probably a bad sign for Joe Biden in general in his second 2 years of his presidency. Never underestimate the stupidity of the electorate. That's what we learned from Trump in 2016 when I was part of it, saying the country wouldn't be so dumb as to vote. The Republicans wouldn't be so dumb as to make this guy their nominee, right? And they were. And then, well, the country wouldn't be so dumb as to make this guy and they did. This is a red alert emergency. It could be disastrous for Democrats. It could be disastrous for the country. And those polls look terrible. One of the problems that Mehmet Oz is facing in his Pennsylvania Senate candidacy is that he's running as a Republican, and yet he's been pro-choice, as far as I can remember, for a really long time. Maybe that's changed. He previously supported Obamacare. He previously supported health insurance mandates before turning against them. And so there were some MAGA people who were not super big on Mehmet Oz. And now Trump has endorsed Mehmet Oz, and it's all going completely and totally bonkers. MAGA world melting down over Trump endorsing Mehmet Oz. So let's go first to the clip of Trump's endorsement. We looked at it earlier in the context of the rally. Here is Trump announcing to the crowd he supports Mehmet Oz.
By the way, I endorsed another person today, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz.
Pensa.
Great guy, good man, Harvard educated, tremendous career. And they liked him for a long time. That's like a poll. You know, when you're in television for 18 years, that's like a poll. That means people like you, but he's a great guy.
You know what's crazy? The reasons that they dislike Mehmet Oz are pretty reasonable things, like he has a history of being pro-choice. He has a history of supporting Obamacare. That is making them lose their minds over Trump's endorsement of Oz. The things that should disqualify him immediately, like the fact that he promoted quack cures for colds, drinkable silver, it's indistinguishable from Alex Jones. They don't seem to have any problem with that, but MAGA world is melting down. Sean Parnell, the former Trump-endorsed candidate who had to drop out of the race after an allegation surfaced from his ex-wife, wrote on Twitter, "I have enormous respect for President Trump. I was honored to have his endorsement in Pennsylvania twice, but I'm disappointed by this. Oz is the antithesis of everything that made Trump the best president of my lifetime. He's the farthest thing from America first, and he'd be very bad for Pennsylvania." Right-wing radio host Eric Erickson tweeted, "It's like Donald Trump's staff is sabotaging Trump by convincing him to make the worst possible endorsements." Breitbart News' Joel Pollack wrote, "This endorsement could divide MAGA in the only way that matters. He could lose America First conservatives over it." And then Republican Mo Brooks from Alabama, who's running for Senate, he recently had a rift with Trump. Trump unendorsed him. He wrote, "This is happening because Trump surrounded himself by staff who are on McConnell's payroll and hostile to the MAGA agenda. Everybody telling Trump who to endorse in primaries works for the swamp. They played him again. Roger Stone was on Telegram writing, wait, President Trump endorsed this guy? Town hall columnist Kurt Schlichter wrote, it's pretty hard for me to fully express how disappointed I am in Trump for endorsing Oz. From Blaze TV, Allie Beth Stuckey wrote, wait, is there anything conservative about Dr. Oz? So they don't love Trump. They love what they imagine Trump to be. And when Trump shows what he is, which is he puts his finger to the wind, he supports people he thinks will win, he supports celebrities, he loves celebrities. That's what, listen, what's the similarity between Herschel Walker and Mehmet Oz? There's not much, other than they're both well known in celebrity space, sports, TV, etc. Trump gets his information from TV. We should be glad he didn't try nominating Judge Judy to the Supreme Court, because that's how Trump makes decisions. The real question is, should Oprah be held accountable for unleashing Mehmet Oz upon the world? I'm half joking, but it's horrible. The guy is horrible. Herschel Walker's horrible. Mehmet Oz is horrible. But if there's anything good from this, it would be hopefully the division within MAGA world over Trump's endorsement of Mehmet Oz. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. You know, I wonder, does my audience call other shows to complain about me? Because so many of our callers call me to complain about other people. The San Antonio troll regularly complains to me about things I didn't say that he heard on other shows. Troy York regularly calls in to complain about other people. And that's what he did, unleashing a brutal and completely unintelligible attack on Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk. I don't know what Troy's talking about, and I don't know why he's calling me about Kyle. See if you can make any heads or tails out of this, or figure out how this even has anything to do with me.
David, Kyle Kulinski is a propagandist and a liar who keeps attacking companies that are resisting unionization. And Starbucks and Amazon, two examples,
okay,
are companies that would not exist through massive unionization. And this is the goal of Kyle Kulinski. He wants to see Starbucks destroyed, more empty storefronts in communities across this country.
I mean, listen, I haven't been to Starbucks in 20 years. I quite frankly think the coffee's a disaster. So I'm half kidding. I understand the jobs component, but I'm no big Starbucks fan. Maybe Kyle shares in that. I don't know.
He attacks Amazon, despite the great services and products that it's able to deliver.
Okay.
And Kyle Kulinski is basically a undemocrat, ignorant socialist.
A undemocrat, ignorant socialist.
And I don't know how you ignorant leftists like Kyle Kulinski continue to lie and propagandize on the internet. Kyle Kulinski,
I guess the same way Troy does. I don't know.
Like yourself and Cenk Uygur and Sam Cedar.
Also, what's playing in the background? But it's like my show is always playing in the background of these calls.
Hate this country, are anti-American. You say nothing about not one of this unionization attempts against Starbucks and Amazon ever complain about the workers in taquerias that are mostly funded by drug cartels in Mexico. Immigrant business. You never talk about immigrant business and Indian restaurants being unionization.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Troy York is talking about, and I don't know why he's calling me about Kyle Kulinski, and I don't know what Kyle said, but please call Kyle. I mean, why do you have to call me? Just call Kyle. Tell him what you think. And I don't know, man. It's very, very strange to call me. We're going to have a great bonus show for you today. We knew that vehicle fatalities were up during the pandemic, but we didn't know why. We now know that excessive speed due to less busy roads played a role in that. We are going to talk about wind and solar which now are responsible for 10% of global energy production. That's still not a massive number, but it's a big change, and things are going in the right direction there. We are also going to talk about another one of the problems that has to be dealt with for long-term space travel for humans. You know, in the past, we've talked about the radiation component needs to be figured out. A lot of radiation when you travel through space. The other issue is bone loss, and there's a new study about it. I want to talk a little bit about cycling and some things that are connected between those things. And a lot of energy now going into how do we deal with the bone loss issue, and that's something that's already being studied. Very, very interesting stuff. An eclectic bonus show for you today. You can sign up and get instant access at joinpacman.com. The coupon code WOW22 will save you a bundle. And I really look forward to seeing you on the bonus show. Last reminder for today, I'll remind you again, but next Tuesday, April 19th, we will be doing a live viewer town hall at 6 p.m. Eastern time. It will be open to everybody. Members will have their own way of getting in touch with me during the town hall. And it's going to be streaming only on our second YouTube channel, the Pacman Live YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed there. It's free. It's free to subscribe. It's free to watch. Everybody can call in. But if you want priority handling during the town hall, become a member at joinpacman.com. I'll see everybody on the bonus show and then back here tomorrow.